Olas Media. Olas Media presents Cannabis Enlightened. Now here's your host, Dr. Leroy Brady.
Hello again, everybody. This is Dr. Leroy coming to you from Cannabis Enlightened. Cannabis Enlightened. And today we have a very special guest, a gentleman I met at one of the conferences here in San Diego. And what was intriguing about his business is that he is working with drinks, cannabis drinks. And, you know, most of us are used to seeing maybe the smokes or the oils or the edibles, the candies. Not a lot of focus maybe on the drinks. So I thought it would be outstanding to get Doug in and have him talk to us about, you know, his business, how he got in the business, what he sees in the business, and just kind of pick his mind. And here's some maybe some stories that he has to share with us about getting into the cannabis business. So, Doug, I'm going to ask you to talk to the folks and let them know who you are and what you're all about.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on, Dr. Leroy. It was really nice to make your acquaintance down there at the Emerald Conference. And yeah, any opportunity to talk about Painted Rooster and Sun Gaze and what we do out here is great. So yeah, you know, what do you want to know about what we do?
Well, let's start off. Where are you now? Where are you?
So we're actually based in Central Washington. We're in the Central Valley. So the city we're in is called Moxxy. We're a small, you know, one of the many suburbs of a city called Yakima. So right in the middle of what we call the Inland Empire. We do, you know, in this particular part of the state, we do a lot of hops cultivation, apples, cherries, tree fruit, etc. You know, Washington's also one of the largest producers of, you know, soft wheat varieties. We have phenomenal farmland up here. Some of the best farmers in the world are right here in the Central Valley. And yeah, we're about 2 hours from Seattle.
So, you know, if I don't say it at the end of our episode, of our discussion, I'm going to say it right now. I am going to come up and visit you before this year is over, because I want to see what you do and, you know, all the fantastic products that you have. I want to see them from the person that has produced them. So tell me about, how did you get into the business?
You know, it was kind of fell into it. You know, me and my friends back when we were, you know, 13, 14, 15 years old, did a little experimenting, right? May have gotten a seed once and sprouted it up and thrown it out in the woods, and somebody came and stole it from us. But that was our first attempt, right, at being cultivators. And then I actually just kind of went a different direction in life. Ended up doing a lot of work in emergency services, you know, mostly community services. Spent a number of years volunteering for a local police department, actually Seattle Police Department domestic violence unit, and then moved into emergency medical services with Eastside Fire and Rescue. And those were all volunteer positions, but I was just trying to feel out, you know, how I wanted to serve people, you know, how I wanted to benefit humanity. And it turned out that wasn't exactly for me. I really enjoyed the work. I really enjoyed the challenge, but I got a little bit more interested in cannabis specifically when my mom actually got sick with breast cancer. Mm-hmm. And when my mom got breast cancer, I was like, what are the things we can do? And the medical space was already open in Washington State at that point. So I went out and got a medical card. You know, I had a few motorcycle wrecks back in the day. I have my own pain issues that, you know, usually just bother me. But with the use of cannabis, it just doesn't bother me as much. You know, I'm not in terrible pain all the time, but, you know, my ankle hurts. You work in the field all day. It's nice to be able to smoke a little weed and chill out a little bit. So when my mom got sick, that was 2010. I got my medical card and started cultivating. You know, put up a false wall in the back of a garage, and you know, luckily my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, was cool with all that, because and I had a really great guy named Matt Webb who taught me the ropes. You know, showed me how to grow in his medical space, and just kind of went through it. And while I was learning about cannabis and learning about my mom's condition, I had also gone back to college. So I started at Bellevue College, went to community college, needed to get some credits up, needed to get my grades up from high school, and did that. Got good grades, and then transferred over to the University of Washington, and I studied cellular and molecular biology. So I have a Bachelor of Science in that, and did a lot of work in, anaerobic microbiology and evolution and things of that nature, because we really didn't have a way to get, no one was giving funding for cannabis research, right?
Right. So I previously, I thought you were the guy that took the cannabis from the cultivator and, maybe in the processing, manufacturing aspect of it, made the drinks. But I'm being, educated now. You started off growing.
Yeah, I started in the grow space. And a lot of those student loans got paid with medical cannabis, which was super helpful. UW's not cheap. So I started in cultivation. And then once I came out of UW, I got my first official job in the I-502, which is the Washington State, legal market. I took my first position in 2014 when it went legal. I'd actually done a lot of work in nightclub security. So taking IDs at the weed shop wasn't a hard gig to get. And plus having a background in cultivation, knowing a lot about the strains, knowing a lot about the medicinal side of things, it was an easy transition, to working with customers and working at the retail level. And I did that while I was finishing up at UW. Graduated in 2015, and then took my first position on the cultivation side in 2015, and found that there were a lot of great cultivators already. And one thing that interested me a lot was the extract side of things. So I, had already had a good amount of training in organic chemistry, but also had a good amount of training in how to make bubble hash, how to use a glass tube and a butane can to make, early resins, and ended up taking a position working for a CO2 processor and, functionalizing CO2 extract oils into vape pens, making sure that they would work. Right.
So tell me, Doug, I get a lot of questions from students, people talking about cultivation. Well, it all starts. I mean, you got to have cultivation in order to get anything else. It's got to come from the earth. So what's your biggest takeaway? What's the thing that you learned that you felt is most important, or you feel is most important from cultivation?
Honestly, it's going to be plant care. Plant health is really important. You can't just run, a lot of crops that people deal with, and as an agricultural commodity, you run it out with a machine, you plant it with a machine, you run drip line, you put it in the field, and you deal with these hundreds of acres. Whereas with cannabis, that works. Hemp is grown in large scale all over the place, but the amount of pesticides you need to be able to keep it at a smokable level, keep detritus off, keep other bacterial contamination off, keep the bugs off, all of those things can get out of hand and, can create a less promising product for the end user if you don't actually put the care into those plants. So the one thing that, I tell people is whether you're growing inside or outside or in a greenhouse, it doesn't actually matter. Putting your hands on the plants, giving them the attention that they need so that they can grow the best flower is more important than what a lot of people think. You don't just throw the drip line on it and walk away from it for the summer and then come back and harvest a good crop. If you want to get a high-end product, if you want to get something that's safe for people to consume, you have to put in the extra time, the extra money, and the extra hands, the extra labor to actually get that product up to the level it needs to be competitive in the market. People, I do come from indoor cultivation and controlled environment ag more. That's more where I've dealt with most of my work. Right. But being outside, with here at Painted Rooster and Moxxy, it's not that much different. The light is free. It's really powerful. And if you pay attention to your plants and give them what they need and, be active in that process, you can have a lot of success. And we're doing that here.
I detect a labor of love in as how you have explained it.
I really do love cannabis. When my mom got sick, it was a very self-serving endeavor, right? I wanted my mom to get better. And full disclosure, my mom never has consumed cannabis in her life still, even when she got cancer. She just toughed it out with chemo, did her thing. She's in remission. She's great. She was a high school teacher for 30 years and helped a lot of people quit smoking cigarettes in her retirement career. Great lady. But no, she never actually used it. She still had the stigma attached to it. And honestly, at the time that we were talking about it, there still wasn't that much information that was accessible to people in their 60s, right? They weren't out there, mixing it up, going into the weed stores, trying to find things out all the time. Some people did, some people didn't.
So your mother still has never used any cannabis
Yeah.
product?
No, she never has, but yeah, now I know where I was going. Being in the medical side of things and working largely, on the CBD strain and cultivar side of the industry at the beginning, I actually got involved around 2014 with a company out of San Diego, of all places. They were called Cannabis at the time. They made the Plus CBD product, and I actually took an outside sales gig with them. And I got to work with a guy named Josh Hartzell. He's a PhD in medicinal plant science, essentially. And working for that company and working exclusively in CBD for that short period of time, I got to meet a lot of people that were dealing with chronic conditions, with autoimmune conditions, all the way across the spectrum, from, people trying to treat their children with autism to people with multiple sclerosis and all these other conditions. I found out pretty quickly that this wasn't a joke. This wasn't snake oil. This works for people. Cannabis works for people. And having come from emergency services and having come from, a space where I ultimately, I feel better about myself when I'm helping other people, seeing it firsthand, watching people's symptoms get better when they're sitting across a table from me with cannabis products, that was it. I knew that this is where I wanted to go. And then as I, continued my education, and as I, continued to understand more about not just, THC bearing, marijuana, but also learning more about hemp, industrial hemp, and those applications outside of CBD, and very specifically as an environmental fix, right? I can't let go. I do love this plant. I do love this industry, and I'm just not going anywhere. So.
Doug, in terms of dosing, here's what I've found. I don't know if it's the same with you, that, most people, they come into cannabis thinking whether they drink or whether they take an oil or edible, they tend to think it's the same as taking a pill or drinking alcohol. And, I have to try to explain to them that it's not the same. I'd be curious as to how you deal with it.
Well, when we're talking, it's apples and oranges, pharmaceuticals versus alcohol versus cannabis, apples, oranges, and, call it cherries. They're all different. Okay. So, with alcohol, you're dealing with a CNS depressant. You're dealing with something that you're going to feel effectively after ingesting it. Within about 30 to 40 minutes,
right.
Yeah, 30 to 40 minutes, you're going to get the full amount of alcohol is now in your bloodstream that you've consumed. And if you have another drink, you're going to increase that number, and your liver is going to be working to try and pull that alcohol back out of you. And it's going to absorb water and dehydrate you while that's happening. And that's how you end up with hangovers. And being that it's a CNS depressant, it's also going to, start out making you feel better, and then it's going to not. And if you drink in moderation, you're going to be fine. Drinking in moderation, okay, not a big deal. Pharmaceuticals taken as prescribed, generally safe, right? The FDA has gone through these processes, and they want to be sure that what you're getting from your pharmacist, from your doctor, is what they say it is. And what's interesting with cannabis is we're still moving towards a very defined quality assurance stance where dosage has to be what it is, right? We now lab test all of our flour, we lab test all of our oils, we lab test all of our beverages. We know what's in those products, and we're able to use, basic chemistry to get our beverage specifically to the place we want it to be. So with beverages, with edibles, with anything that's post-processed, into another form, we're able to give a very accurate dose to a person. With flower marijuana, half gram should have about this many milligrams. Smoke the entire, half gram of that product into your lungs. You're going to feel that in about 5 or 6 minutes at the most, if not immediately. And you're going to know what that effect is. So cultivar to cultivar, it might change. Potency to potency, it might change. But the reality is that the long-term effect of cannabis compared with pharmaceuticals or with alcohol is a better outcome. You're going to get a better long-term outcome using this product as you need it. You know, there is concern with pharmaceutical addiction. There's concern with alcohol addiction. There's concern with cannabinoid addiction. Yeah. But if I have to pick the lesser of three, right, the least dangerous of all of those, cannabis is it. Right. Cannabis is the one.
Right. It's just unfortunate that just about in many cities, on every corner there's a liquor store, and I could almost say the same thing for a pharmacy. Perhaps in some larger stores like a Walmart or Walgreens or so forth, there are pharmacies. So
you can get your alcohol and your pills right at Walmart.
Yes. But cannabis, not so much. I mean, it's still an uphill battle quite a bit. But it sounds like you're trying to turn the corner maybe a little bit with the drinks, because people, I don't know if that was your goal in the first place, that people are used to drinking something and feeling something from it. And maybe you can comment on whether or not a drinkable cannabis product has a reaction sooner than or quicker than an edible.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the interesting thing about doing the cannabis beverage space, I was actually brought on by Painted Rooster, before I took over as CEO back in September of 21. Before that, I was the scientific director out at a company called Exabra, but that was all for my consulting company, Phytofarm. They brought me in because they wanted to develop a new infused joint product, and I was running an extraction facility. So I was able to provide them with those inputs. And once they got those inputs, they kind of led on to the fact that, well, we are really interested in developing a cannabis beverage. Can you tell us how that works? And I said, yeah, of course I can. So I got brought out in July of last year, and went over to the Bale Breaker Brewery, which is just down the street from Painted Rooster. Some of our owners are also the owners of that brewery, and they know their stuff on how to make a delicious beverage. Whether it's they are a farm to pint brewery. Their family also owns the hops fields out here, so the hops that they are cultivating on their family land go into their family brewery and become delicious beer. And they wanted to bring that exact same energy to our product, Sungaze. They wanted to have something that we can control the entire supply chain, that we can stand behind and around and in front of this product, getting it out to the customers. And at first I was just like, yeah, this is a process, A, B, C, D. This is how you make a cannabis beverage that's going to have the right bioavailability. It's going to have the right flavor. It's going to be enjoyable to drink. And when we got through, they offered me a job. They said, hey, we'd like somebody that has, some experience in cultivation, some experience in extraction, some experience in functionalizing products to run this thing. And, it was an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. And being out here and getting to work with people that care that much about the product already before I even came on, that was really heartening. And that was an easy yes. My wife and my kids still live back in our house in Spokane, so I travel to the farm 4 days a week, and then back to Spokane on the weekends. I'm actually going to be leaving here in about an hour to get back there. It's been an incredible journey. But the beverage side of it, I like dabs, I like vape pens, I like flower. Seeing how much the technology had advanced in the nano emulsification side of things and getting cannabis into liquid products was a really fun, kind of new field for me. And getting the opportunity to do that with people that, out here that care about it as much as I do it's honestly just been a great ride so far.
Is that a difficult process? I don't want you to get all technical on me, but is that because not only will you lose me, but you'll probably lose my audience too.
Fair. Okay.
But can you, how do you get a drinkable product from a flower? I mean,
Yeah, I'll give you the whole workflow. Here we go. So
okay.
you get the plant and you put it in the dirt, and then you feed it nutrients and give it sunlight. And then once the sun isn't coming out as often, when it gets down to about 12-hour light cycles every day, that plant's going to flower and it's going to produce trichomes. Those trichomes are on the outside of the plant. Harvest the plant, bring it inside, dry it down, or fresh freeze it. We do both here. And then from there, you just go into the post-processing side of things. So it's going to be butane, or it's going to be ethanol or CO2, or sometimes, now people are doing microwave distillations. Essentially, you need to get all of the plant material away from all of the cannabinoids and terpenes. Once you've got to that point, you're going to use a process called nanoemulsification. And essentially, that is a high pressure workflow where you will take and you're trying to combine oil and water together. So cannabinoids are oil soluble and not water soluble. But if you can get an oil to encapsulate essentially the cannabinoids, then they can dissolve into water. So going through that process of creating the nanoemulsification is done by a piece of equipment, just like the extraction side is done. And at the end of that process, you'll run it through the machine 7 or 8 times. It's about 30,000 PSI is the shear force that's actually making the oil go into the water. And that gets you a nano droplet or a micro or a macro emulsion that you can then put into a beverage. The smaller the emulsion gets, the more it's going to spread itself out in the beverage naturally. It's less likely to separate, and it will stay shelf stable for longer. And so that's the products that we use is very, very small micron size emulsification. And then that just becomes a general additive. You can add it to edibles, you can add it to beverages, you can do whatever you'd like to do with that product. But the important thing, and I can't stress it enough, the important thing is that what happened in the field at the very beginning is what's going to give you the best product at the end.
So if you have a beverage, Doug, that has a high THC, I'm just going to use THC because the listeners will know that right away. But I'm well
aware. Loves it.
Yeah, and I'm well aware of the fact, and I try to communicate to people that there's more to cannabis than THC or CBD. Yeah. The liquid that you said at the beginning that you I guess put the cannabis in that helps to draw out what you need, right?
Yeah.
How does that happen by pouring the liquid on top of the cannabis leaf in a container, or is it pressurized?
Yeah, so my favorite way to extract is with butane. I like using hydrocarbons. So you'll take your plant material, dry, fresh frozen, either way. You'll place that into a column, a steel column, usually one that's jacketed. I like to use CO2 jacketed columns so that I can get really cold temperatures. And what you're doing is using the thermodynamic properties of the solvent, which is butane, propane, and then the solubility of cannabinoids in that at a specific temperature, right? So when you soak the butane into the plant matrix, all of the cannabinoids that are in it are going to move from the plant biomass into the solvent. And then that solvent is filtered and will move over. And then in a closed loop, we'll remove the butane and propane, just again, using the thermodynamic properties. I like closed loop systems that are passive. So I don't like to use pumps. And I run machines that are made in Tacoma, Washington called Busy Bees. Great functional steel equipment. And at the end of that, you will pour out a cannabis concentrate from that machine, further refine it, further remove any residual solvent that was in there. That goes for any solvent type. Remove all that residual solvent, and you're left with purely cannabinoids, terpenes, and then maybe some of the other plant byproducts. And once you have that oil, then you can move it into the next step, either direct consumption or into distillate or further into a nanoemulsion, right? So it's like dissolves like is what we say in chemistry.
How do you give it the flavor?
Flavor comes with it. Now, on the beverage side, the flavor that we do with Sun Gaze, and I don't know if this is a podcast, but I'll put the can up because it's delicious. But with Sun Gaze, the flavor is actually coming from the ingredients we put into it. We use lemon puree, we use natural ginger extracts, we use pure cane sugar to give it a little bit of sweetness. But as far as the beverage side goes, we're trying not to taste the emulsion because it's actually very bitter. So we're trying not to taste the emulsion. Now with a good dab, if we're talking about a CO2 concentrate, an ethanol concentrate, or a butane concentrate, the flavor is all coming from the plant that you put in. So if you put in a really good product that smells nice, you're going to get out the smells and the flavors along with the cannabinoids at the same time. So the flavoring is native state. It's what it's supposed to be based on the flower.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to add artificial flavors to those, which lots of people do, there are plant-derived terpenes. There are, other botanical inputs that you can use to create flavors in smokable products. But for the most part, I think that the best products are unadulterated, pure cannabis derived. And the flavor comes through really, really well on all of those things.
Is it a bitter flavor or?
Oh, no. If you've ever taken a dab or if you ever smoked flower, those flavors that are coming through, that's the natural cannabis flavors by themselves. Now, the bitter flavor comes from when we add a different type of carrier oil to the cannabinoid oil. And then when those two go together, cannabinoids become soluble inside that oil. And then that's what we put through the machine to make it into the nanoemulsion. So that oil in itself, that's the carrier, that generally doesn't carry any flavor at all.
And when you drink it tends to, because it's liquid and it's going into your body, it tends to get into your system quicker, or the same as edibles?
No, a little bit faster, a lot faster. So an edible that's made from from rosin, from butane, from anything like that, you don't have the micro size of the compound. So it's not going to spread itself out. And you've got to, if it's a brownie, right, or a piece of candy, you have to get past all the stuff that goes into the brownie to get the cannabinoids out and then get that into your bloodstream. So with a liquid edible product, you don't have anything to break down. You just have all these nanoparticles of cannabinoids hitting your stomach, being absorbed in your stomach and your small intestine right off the bat. And so with sun gaze, I've done my own science on this and, cracked the can open just like I did in college with a knife in the side and shotgun it. And I looked at my watch, and in about 5 or 6 minutes, I felt it. So 5 or 6 minute onset. Yeah. Wow. It can be that fast. And there are other tincture products that are very quick. Taking any type of edible product that's a liquid sublingually, just right underneath the tongue.
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot of veins, a lot of arteries running through your tongue and in your mouth, and it's really close to your brain. So your onset's going to be very, very quick with those types of products. And, we're really happy with the product with Sungaze, with how fast it comes on. But our product is a microdose product. We're not looking to get you high. We're looking to chill you out. We're crafted for chill. We're looking to get 2.5 milligrams of THC delivered into your bloodstream in one can. And then if you need 2 cans, go ahead, have 4 of them. Because by the time you've gotten to 4, that's the equivalent of one regular industry edible, which is 10 milligrams of THC. So you can drink a whole 4-pack of these things, in an afternoon and only be at one edible the whole time.
So when you talk about microdosing, that's another way of saying there's less THC. I mean, that there's an edible can have 10 milligrams. Okay. So a microdose would have half of that.
Microdosing, it's usually anything that's below 5. I'd say 5 and below is more of the microdose level. But cannabinoids are notorious for affecting people differently. So 2.5 milligrams. Good example. My wife, 1/2 of a sun gaze. So effectively 1.25 milligrams. That's enough for her to be smiling ear to ear, and that's all she drinks. And I finish off the rest of it, right? And then I have other friends that have been in the industry and choose to consume larger amounts of cannabinoids, and they'll buy one of my competitors' drinks that may have 100 milligrams in an entire bottle, and they'll drink that whole thing down, and it'll affect them about the same, smiling ear to ear. Maybe you'll feel that body high, maybe you'll feel more of that edible onset. But with a microdose, the idea is that you don't really need that much of a cannabinoid to feel a physiological effect. And so with these products, we're accessible. We're accessible to every kind of consumer, especially, the canna curious, people who don't historically consume cannabis, but they might not be opposed to it. Well, Sungaze is where you come. Like, we're the product that you want to come to. And that's because you're going to get a proper dosage, a uniform dosage, a consistent product every single time that you can trust, that has good inputs, how many calories are in it, what you're consuming. I give you an ingredients list. I give you nutrition facts. I give you your dosage, and I'll even give you the lab results so you know what that dosage is going to be. And so for people that are entering,
that sounds like a new word you just invented.
Canna curious.
Canna curious. I'm going. Can I use that?
You may, and I did not invent it, and I can't tell you who did. But hey, you know what? If I'm the first one on a podcast to take it, fine, throw a trademark under it. I'll let you use it though.
You are the first one that's ever said use that term, canna curious. That's interesting.
Well, it's a huge part of the market.
Yeah.
It's a huge unrealized portion of the market, because if we consider, how many people are in Washington, or how many people are in California or Oklahoma or any of these other states that have legal, medical or recreational cannabis, you think about all those different places, and you think about, like, let's go back to my mom, right? You got a mid-70s lady, active, but she's active. She doesn't want to get couch locked. She doesn't want to be out of control. But maybe she just wants to relax a little bit. This is a product for people like that. This is a product you can take to your kid's soccer game and put in a koozie and sip on. And you know what? There's still 0 deaths attributed to cannabis. Right. But how many are attributed to beers? How many are attributed to hard liquor? How many are attributed to, pharmaceutical drugs? This one's arguably much safer than anything else on the market. So, if somebody wants to try it for the first time and they want to know what an edible is like, but they want to be able to titrate up, control their dosage, right, products like mine are the way to go.
That's fantastic. So I'm curious of your opinion in terms of the drinkables. Do they appeal to men or women? I mean, who has the appeal?
I think it's actually generally somewhat universal. Okay. I think that men and women both can enjoy an edible product that is liquid based. Mm-hmm. A lot of the marketing that I see in other markets that are, kind of outside of Washington State, all of the, Washington State is this strange little cannabis island. Our laws are arguably more restrictive when it comes to investment. Our laws are more restrictive when it comes to who can own, who can operate. We aren't allowed to be vertically integrated, so I can't sell my product directly to a consumer. I have to sell my product to a retail store who will then charge the state taxes on it and take their own profit on top of that. And so Washington's just a little bit weird, but it's my home. I'm not leaving. I love it here. Okay. Planes aren't that hard to get on. But yeah, for this market, I think that men and women just generally enjoy the same. And I think that microdose products are even more appealing to both of those, because, if you are a heavy marijuana smoker, let's say you just finish off smoking a joint or maybe a blunt, and now your mouth, you need something to drink. I got you. Like, I've got something delicious that's going to help with the cotton mouth, and, and not add on too much, but it'll add a little.
What's new? What's new and really dynamic or interesting in terms of a product in cannabis?
The coolest thing that I think is happening right now with the cannabinoid products is, number one, I think that microdosing and microdosed liquids are starting to come to the forefront. I think people are starting to get more interested in the smellless, very easy flavor type products. And, I think that beverages are more on the cutting edge than anything. What other products I've seen recently, and it's fun having been doing this for so long. I remember the color of extracts has changed, like how the appearance of extracts has changed, because we've learned so much more. Because now, instead of one guy saving up an ounce worth of trim to make a concentrate under not controlled conditions, now we can control all those conditions and we can create these really high-end products. And so I think between the infused joint market and the vaporizer market, everything has really been coming up and getting and improving, especially over the last 4 or 5 years. And, those products are also very accessible. But, the other new thing that, I don't specialize in is what people have been doing with kind of functionalizing other cannabinoids. So there's HHC, there's CBG, CBN, all of these different cannabinoids that are largely, most are naturally occurring, but in just very small amounts. But we have this huge supply chain of CBD. Well, a little bit of organic chemistry and some quality laboratory equipment, and you can make CBD into the Delta 8. You can make CBD into Delta 9. You can make CBD or CBG into all of these other cannabinoids because they have the same functional structure. They're made by similar, enzymes. So you can do so much more with it. So it's been interesting to me to see, kind of the rise and fall of the Delta 8 type products. Seeing HHC start to come up quite a bit. Seeing THCO acetate come out a lot. THCO acetate, I've never actually consumed that, but it's interesting to me because it, as I understand it, it has a longer binding time. So it actually stays on your receptor just that little bit more and keeps that, that G protein separated off for a longer period of time. So you might feel higher longer, or you might need less of it to be as high. So it's been interesting seeing, chemists come to play and put these products out. I'd rather grow it from a plant and do it that way. That's how I like to farm my molecules. But there's still a lot of valid, there's still a lot of valid science being done, and it's honestly just really heartening, and it's been really positive seeing more people from hard science coming in and applying it to the cannabis space. So yeah, kind of a roundabout way to talk about your question, but
no, it's fascinating to hear you talk about it. Now, the drink that you produce, the products that you're producing, they're only available in Washington.
That's right. Yeah. Every state we can, if we produce it in that state, it's not supposed to leave. That's,
federally they can't, because it's still Schedule 1. It can't cross the border. Okay.
Yes. And so, but you have a market like California where, you have so many millions of people. You have a large, well-established market, both from the black market, medical space for the last, 20 years, medical has been in California. Now moving into, their, what is it, Prop 60? I can't remember what the law is in California, but now we're starting to see, more forward retailers, more forward products coming out into the recreational space and everywhere. With Sungaze, we're ready at pretty much any time to bring this product to another market. We're just going to kind of wait and see.
Your product goes to a retailer, because you're not a retailer, right?
Correct. We are what's called a producer processor.
Right. So if folks, and you need to collect some money from the Washington Tourism Bureau, because I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk about, if people come to Washington, where can they find your product?
Yeah, we are in right now. We launched the product recently, and adoption is pretty slow, especially with a product that's as unique as Sungaze. We're the first truly microdose beverage product to ever be released in the market. We're also the first cannabis beverage to be released in a can. So it's basically getting in front of the buyers, getting that product into the retail store so that people can purchase it. But we're in, 30 stores so far. We're picking up more every single week. But you can, it depends on where you go in the state. But if you're in Spokane, you'll be well represented. If you come here to Yakima, you'll be able to find our product. We are in Seattle. We're in Vancouver. We're in a lot of the small towns too. And we intend on picking up more and more, because every one of the retailers that's picked up Sungaze, every one of the bud tenders, every one of the customers that gives us feedback on Instagram, everybody loves it because it's completely different from every other edible type, in that it tastes really good, and it doesn't taste like a sugar bomb, and it's made to be enjoyed and consumed many times.
I can't wait to try it. And we're just about at the end of the program. So I want to say again, I'm going to let you know when I'm going to come to Washington to visit you, because I'd like to see your operation. And definitely
come in August.
I may even do that. Yeah.
Come in August. All the plants look beautiful in August. I mean, they're just at the right size. We're starting to see the flip, that flip to flower has already gone on. You're seeing the pistils. Yeah, it's beautiful. And we actually, working closely with hops cultivators out here, and we have a really good equitable farming community here in the Yakima Valley. We were able to redesign our grow, make it more functional, make it easier for us to implement our integrated pest management, and kind of make a beautiful farm on top of a productive farm. So I think you'll have fun coming out and seeing us. And there are a bunch of other farms in the area. I'd be happy to tour you around, man. Everybody's out here is great.
Well, the only other thing I want to do is say to you that I want to be able to come back and talk to you maybe in a few months to see what new things have developed with your product and cultivation, and what new would be happening in Washington. So on that, I want to thank you for being so very gracious with your time. If folks could see you, they could really understand that you have a genuine passion for what you're doing. And I appreciate that. So thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate your time and what you do for the cannabis industry.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Leroy. It's been a pleasure.
This has been Dr. Leroy with Cannabis Enlightened, thanking you for listening to another episode with Doug Henderson.
If you'd like to hear more Cannabis Enlightened with Dr. Leroy, be sure to visit us online at cannabisenlightened.com and subscribe wherever you download your podcasts. Cannabis Enlightened is produced in San Diego, California, and presented by March and Ash at marchandash.com.
Olas Media.